with the suggestion of the President of the United States.
Excuse me?
With the suggestion of the President of the United States, your boss.
I do not make suggestions. I will.
No.
Commissioner.
He will make suggestions to you.
Excuse me?
How many taxpayers' returns were leaked by the IRS contractor in the 2020 breach?
I don't know the exact amount, but a lot.
405,427. One of them was Donald Trump. Correct? Is it a coincidence that the General Counsel of the Department of Treasury resigned yesterday?
I don't know if it's a coincidence.
No. Have you looked or checked?
Have I checked?
Yeah.
I have not.
You're his appointee. The IRS are his appointees. He's the plaintiff. And the American people, I don't think, are surprised that suddenly all this money is going to his friends or people that he, in his orbit. Will you ensure that none of this money goes to anyone convicted on the January 6th attack on the Congress?
Well, the commissioners will determine who is eligible to receive the money.
And who are the commissioners?
They're not named yet.
Senator Jack Reed put Todd Blanche on the spot over the $1.8 billion IRS settlement, questioning who would control the victim's money and whether President Trump could influence who gets paid. The exchange quickly turned into a confrontation over power, accountability, and the rule of law.
How many taxpayers' returns were leaked by the IRS contractor in the 2020 breach?
I don't know the exact amount, but a lot.
405,427. One of them was Donald Trump. Correct? One of them was Donald Trump, correct?
One of them was Donald Trump and his family, or others, correct.
Right. And Donald Trump was president at the time.
Correct.
So it was his IRS department that allowed this breach of privacy, correct?
Well, it was a criminal who worked in the IRS, yes.
Well, he was hired under Trump's administration. This is one of the Trump.
Well, there was a criminal breach that led to this, yes.
Very good. How many of these 400,000 people have received monetary reimbursement for the breach?
I don't think any have, including the president.
No, they haven't. But you've authorized the president to agree the president should have reimbursement, correct?
No, we settled the case. No, there's no reimbursement to President Trump.
Well,
He
that's
filed a suit,
interesting.
Senator, but
So President Trump, you're going to assure us President Trump and his family will get no proceeds from this?
Correct. He will not.
He will not get. His family will not get.
Correct.
And who will direct the distribution of these? Who gets the money?
From the
right.
Victims Fund?
Yeah.
Well, there'll be a commission of 5 individuals that will be set up, and they will take in requests and claims and decide whether to do anything from issue of
Who
policy.
will name the commissioners?
I will. Or the Attorney General, whoever the Attorney General is.
The Attorney General. Okay.
Sorry, just to correct. And one of them will be done in consultation with leadership of this body.
Consultation. Well, that's good. But
On May 19th, the Justice Department expanded the settlement by agreeing to bar the IRS from pursuing pending tax claims against Trump, his family, and his businesses. The same deal created the nearly $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund that Blanche said would be controlled by a 5-member commission.
when he first announced this suit on January 30th, he said, I think what we'll do is something for charity, where I'll give the money to charity. I'm talking about the American Cancer Society. I would say established and respected charities. Will you fulfill the president's wish that it goes to respected charities?
I'm aware that he put that in or said that, but that's not ultimately what the settlement calls for.
Well, the settlement was negotiated between his lawyers and the Department of Justice, correct?
Correct.
So his lawyers did not urge that they adopt the president's vision of giving it to a respectable charity?
I am confident his lawyers urged the president's desires. Obviously, there's not a charity.
The Justice Department officially announced a $1.776 billion anti-weaponization fund with 5 commissioners responsible for deciding claims. Blanche told lawmakers the commission could provide compensation or other relief to people claiming they were victims of government weaponization.
The order that you signed yesterday states that the government pay this settlement if the Secretary of Treasury has certified the payment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is it a coincidence that the General Counsel of the Department of Treasury resigned yesterday?
I don't know if it's a coincidence.
Yeah. Have you looked or checked?
Have I checked?
Yeah.
I have not. As to why he resigned?
It just seems to be very coincidental that a high-ranking member of the Department of Treasury, Senate confirmed, would resign the day that the Treasury Department was required essentially to certify these payments.
Well, I believe the IRS signed the settlement agreement as well, but yes. But I can't speak to why he resigned, Senator.
Well, this all seems to be an obvious abuse of power by the Department of Justice, by the President. He negotiated essentially with himself. You're his appointee. The IRS are his appointees. He's the plaintiff. And the American people, I don't think, are surprised that suddenly all this money is going to his friends or people that he, in his orbit. Will you ensure that none of this money goes to anyone convicted on the January 6th attack on the Congress?
Well, the commissioners will determine who is eligible to receive the money. Not
And
the Attorney General.
who are the commissioners?
They're not named yet.
Who will name them?
I will, or the Attorney General will. It's not me.
So, with the suggestion of the President of the United States?
Excuse me?
With the suggestion of the President of the United States, your boss?
I do not make suggestions. I will.
No.
appoint commissioners.
He will make suggestions to you.
I have no idea if he will or not. I really don't. I have no idea if he will or not.
I would be shocked if he didn't tell you exactly who to put on, and I'd be more shocked if you did not put them on. This is a travesty of the law in the United States and the Constitution.
The biggest development since this hearing is that the controversial $1.776 billion anti-weaponization fund did not remain in its original form. In early August 2026, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche rescinded the fund as he sought confirmation as permanent Attorney General after Republican senators, including John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, raised concerns about whether people involved in January 6th could receive money from it. Blanche also narrowed the separate tax protections that had been created for President Trump and his family. That is especially significant because during this May hearing, Senator Jack Reed repeatedly pressed Blanche on exactly that issue: who would control the money, who would select the 5 commissioners, and whether January 6 defendants could potentially benefit. The original settlement had created a 5-member panel, with the Attorney General playing a major role in appointments. The subsequent decision to rescind the fund shows that those concerns were not merely theoretical, they became a serious political obstacle to Blanche's confirmation. Now go back to what Reed was actually challenging. The dispute began with the IRS contractor who illegally disclosed confidential tax information belonging to thousands of taxpayers, including Donald Trump. Reed used that breach to question whether Trump, as president, should receive compensation from a settlement involving the government agency he ultimately controlled. Blanche's answer was that Trump himself would receive no monetary payment from the settlement. Instead, the agreement created a large compensation fund for people whom the administration considered victims of government weaponization. The original settlement also required the government to issue Trump an apology. But Reed's concern went further. He wanted to know who would decide which applicants qualified for money. Blanche explained that a 5-member commission would make those decisions, while the Attorney General would have a role in selecting the commissioners. That immediately created a potential conflict of interest question because the Attorney General was also part of the administration settling the president's lawsuit against the IRS. Then came Reed's question about January 6th. Reed wanted Blanche to guarantee that people convicted for the January 6th attack would not receive money from the fund. Blanche did not provide that guarantee. The original arrangement, instead, left eligibility decisions to the commission. Contemporary reporting noted that Blanche would not rule out January 6th rioters being considered for payouts. That issue became politically important afterward. Republican senators themselves eventually objected to the structure of the fund, with concerns that it could potentially benefit people involved in the Capitol attack. Those objections contributed to Blanche's later decision to rescind the fund while seeking confirmation. There was another development that made the controversy even more serious. On May 19, 2026, the same day as this hearing, the Justice Department released an additional document signed by Blanche that went beyond the original compensation fund. It stated that the government was forever barred from pursuing certain existing tax claims involving Trump, his family, and his businesses connected to prior tax returns. That meant the controversy was no longer simply about whether taxpayers' money might be distributed through a politically controversial fund. It also became a question of whether a president had effectively received special protection from the government's own tax collection authority through a settlement negotiated by his own administration. That is why Reid's accusation of self-dealing became such a central part of the political debate. Supporters of the settlement argued that Trump had been the victim of an unlawful disclosure of confidential tax information, and that people targeted by politically motivated government investigations deserved a mechanism for seeking compensation. Blanche defended the arrangement as a lawful way to provide redress for victims of government weaponization. Critics saw something fundamentally different. Their argument was that the president was suing an agency controlled by his own administration. The Justice Department settled that lawsuit, and the resulting agreement created a fund that could potentially benefit his political allies. That unusual structure prompted criticism from Democrats, watchdogs, and even some Republicans. And the later rescission of the fund gives Reid's questioning additional significance. When Reid asked, "Who will name the commissioners?" he was identifying one of the most important structural issues in the agreement: who controls the people who control the money. When he asked whether January 6 defendants could receive payments, he was testing whether the fund had sufficiently clear eligibility standards. And when he questioned whether Trump and his family could benefit, he was challenging the fundamental appearance of a president using his own administration to resolve a financial dispute involving himself. The administration ultimately changed course on the fund, but the broader tax issue remained. The later agreement continued to draw scrutiny because of its provisions concerning Trump's previous tax returns. Reporting on the subsequent changes indicates that Blanche narrowed those protections while attempting to address Republican concerns during his confirmation process. So, looking at the hearing with the later developments in mind, Reid's confrontation was not simply about an IRS data breach. It became a much larger question about government accountability, presidential conflicts of interest, control over public funds, and the limits of executive power. The original breach itself was unquestionably serious. Confidential taxpayer information was illegally disclosed, and the person responsible was prosecuted. But the difficult constitutional question came afterward. What happens when the person claiming damages from the government is also the president who controls the executive branch that is negotiating the settlement? That is the part that made this controversy so unusual. The later rescission of the $1.776 billion fund demonstrates that even within the president's own party, there were concerns about where the arrangement could lead. At the same time, supporters can argue that the administration had a legitimate responsibility to compensate people it believed had been politically targeted. So the strongest takeaway is not that Reid automatically proved the settlement was illegal. He exposed a serious appearance of conflict problem that the administration subsequently had to address. The key question now is, was rescinding the $1.776 billion fund enough to resolve the concerns Reid raised, or should Congress still investigate whether the original settlement improperly mixed presidential interests with the government's legal and financial powers?